Hello trade pros and welcome to another video here on YouTube. And in today's video we're going to be talking about something very interesting that I see a lot of people looking for. We're going to be talking about volume profiles and how to use them to day trade futures. So we're going to be going through a pretty extensive list of different things today, and we're going to break everything down for you. So before we get started, I want you all to hit that subscribe button because I noticed that a lot of you are not yet subscribed, but you're watching all of these videos and getting a lot of value out of them. So please hit that subscribe button, and I want to see you guys smash that like button. And remember, when we get to 60,000 subscribers here on YouTube at TRADEPRO Academy, we're going to open the doors to our live trading rooms, both the options room and the futures room, on a separate day basis. So remember to ring that little bell to notify you when we go live every morning and every midday for our midday market recap. So enough of this intro. I hope you guys enjoyed this lengthier intro, and let's get ready for what we've got in store today. So welcome. In today's volume profile day trading futures video, we are going to go over a plethora of different things. Let me list them out for you and we'll pop them up on the screen. First, we're going to talk about what is the volume profile. Next, we're going to be talking about trading view and volume profiles. So I'm going to talk to you guys about how to actually set these up, which ones I like to use for day trading, which ones are important, and so on. And then we're also going to be talking about finding levels based on your volume profile. We're going to be talking about the four main types of volume profiles that I like to look at and trade. And finally, how we can find trade ideas and execution based on said volume profiles. So why don't we get started with this right away and talk to you guys about what is the volume profile. So on the screen here, you may see a lot of different things. Why don't we get rid of all of them for you other than the volume profile? So we'll close up a lot of the other tools and indicators, whatever it may be, and we'll just focus on just the price action and the volume profile. So as you may have noticed, the volume profile is here on the side. You can see it on each trading session. I'm outlining it here in the red pen, and each day, each full day in the futures market has its own volume profile session. Now, what is included in said volume profile? First, it's good to know that it starts at 6 p.m. Eastern because that is when the futures Globex market opens, and then it'll close the following day around 5:59. So the next day starts at 6 p.m. Eastern. The volume profile shows us three main things that we need to know. So before we get into those three main things, the volume profile is by definition the volume traded at a certain level of price. So some levels are more extended than others, some are more shallow than others. That means that there is less volume traded at the shallow areas than there is at the thicker areas. So the three main components that I promised to tell you about this volume profile is, you can see there is a lighter version and a darker version of the volume profile here. The darker version is the main chunk of volume traded during the session. So the main chunk is probably around 66% of the volume that is traded in that session is going to lie between this darker chunk of volume. And you can see it's a lot thicker. It's like a belly in comparison to this thin, lighter volume right here. So this like lighter, more muted volume that's not as colored as this one right here is the thinner volume area where the remaining percent is traded. So just around like 33% is going to be traded in this lower volume area. Now, another thing that's important is to know that where the volume goes from belly to thin. So what I mean by that is where the thinness starts to ramp up in this from the big belly. That's going to be a very interesting area. That's where we consider the low volume node. Now, this could happen on either end of the chart, right? And in the middle where the big belly is, where the colored area is, that the high volume node. Now, the other piece is this red line. This is called the point of control, or the POC, where the most volume is traded at that certain level for that day session. So with these tools and this basic understanding, we can start developing strategies and understanding how to use this volume profile a little better. But before we get into that, I just want to show you guys how to set this up. So if we just clear this out, I click on it, I press delete, we have no more volume profile. So what do? We go into the indicators tab here on TradingView. We'll go into the volume profile section, and we can do either session volume HD or just session volume. I'll go to the HD because it gives us a little more intricacies in the volume profile. Now, if I double click the volume profile, we can see that the value area, right? We can increase the value area, right? That may change, but we can just keep it at 70 or 66, whatever you prefer. So we can have that first standard deviation. And the style, with the style, all you do here is change what things look like. It's not that important, to be honest. You can incorporate it however you'd like. You can change it to developing POC, whatever. I'm just going to keep it as is. So now that we understand how to place it, we need to understand how to start using this volume profile effectively. Now, a pretty simple way, we got the S&P 500 futures up here with us, and the futures really respond well with volume and volume profiles. They trade all night starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, so that's why we like to use the volume profile on the futures, because you can develop a profile from the overnight session and use that for the ongoing US trading session, and you can use it for the next day session, so on and so forth. So if we grab a piece of this volume profile and we look at it intently, and we have a developing volume profile overnight, right? You can actually do that and create it on TradingView. So what I'm going to do is actually hide this volume profile, and what we're going to do is go into indicators again, and we're going to use fixed range volume profile just to see where we have our overnight session. So from here, all we have to do is just grab the starting point, which I've missed many a time. Let's see where it is. 6 p.m. Eastern, and we can grab it all the way until 9:30 a.m. Eastern. That's when the U.S. session starts. So that is, we'll go 9:25. Whoops. So that is right here. So now that we've done this, we've created a volume profile that lasts the evening session. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just making these rows a little thinner in the row size. So this is the evening session volume profile. Now, based on this, what we can do is identify the large volume node area, right? So we use the volume profiles to identify levels. So if we use this to identify levels, what we want to do is identify where the volume starts to thin out and where it comes into these larger volume areas. Because these edges, as we call them, where volume goes from fat to thin or thin to fat, are going to be big support resistance levels for price, and they're going to act as such, right? So when you get into that area, it's going to be a support resistance area, and if you break through, the idea is that you're going to come into the next big belly of volume, right? So we can identify a lot of these support resistance. They don't have to be this side by side, this exact, but maybe you want to do just the ones that stick out the most. So for example, these ones stick out the most, meaning that if we break above this area, right, we're typically going to see an accelerated move to the upside. Should we break below this thin support zone, you can see it comes into consolidation with structure, where structure has failed a multitude of times. Resistance turns into support. You break that, you're expected to move into the next larger volume area, which is somewhere here, and into the next support or resistance area, which happens to be a thin volume level. That's where you're expected to stall. Under the lowest volume area, right, this super thin spot that you can see just got obliterated to the upside, you're going to have a pretty strong descended move all the way down into the big volume area, which you saw overnight. So remember, thin volume moves go into large volume moves. So this is the overall target because it's pretty thin volume to the downside. So you can use these to draw your support resistance zones overnight, or you can just use the prior day's sessions as well. So the prior day sessions, if we throw these guys back on, so you can see from yesterday's day session, you want to grab the large volume area. Oops, I butchered that. Hold on. You want to grab the high volume area, right? And assuming that you're just trading this from the start of the Globex session, right? Grab that high volume area, and once you get into that area, right, that's going to be an attractant area. And if price is down here, you know that you have another zone like this, right, where this thin volume starts to shape up. And the idea is if you break this thin volume area, you're going to move into this area right here and this area right here mainly. So you can use this in confluence with the structure. You can see once we break this thin volume area, we move up to the big volume. We pull back and hold the same area as support to make a move into that big volume area from the prior day's session. So leading into that, there are a few different ways to kind of use these volume profiles. I'm going to explain to you 4 main types of the volume profile. The first type of the volume profile is what we call a P shape. So a P shape is pretty top heavy. It looks like a P, right? So let's draw it out here for you guys. It just looks like a volume profile that's very top heavy. The majority of the volume is going to shape up at the top of the chart, right? At the top of the volume profile. That means there's going to be an extended move that is on weaker volume, and then there's going to be a consolidative period towards the tops. So these P-shaped volume profiles are typically a more bullish sign, and you're expecting a little more movement through that P-shaped area to the next day and to the next volume profile to the upside. So this right here is a perfect example of the P shape, right? So I got the wrong thing. This is the perfect example of the P shape right here, the one that we had just looked at and analyzed. So how to use this is we'll grab the P portion, right, which is the largest area of volume that had traded. So we'll grab it like this. Let's just make it. And what we're going to do is, the idea is when you break through the resistance of that P, there's a very high chance that you're going to see an extended move to the upside. So it leads to bullish. When you find these big bellies, you want to identify where they are with a box or something, because you will see that a break through either direction is going to result in a more extended move. Now, P's aren't necessarily going to be 100% like looking like P's, right? This one looks like a wonky P, but it's more of a P shape. You've also got the B shape. So the B shape looks exactly like this, which is the opposite of the P shape, and it looks just like a B, where the majority of the volume has accumulated at the bottom of the chart. So this has a more bearish skew and doesn't necessarily have to have a bearish skew, but there's a higher probability that we make a move to the bearish side based on this. So if we do the same thing that we did with the P shape, we're going to grab the edges of this B and think, okay, well, if we get a break under or above, ideally under, because that's where the most volume is going to happen, you're going to get a little more extended of a move to the downside. Now, don't forget your key support resistance levels, because you want to use this in confluence, not just volume profiles. So in this case, right, the edge breaks to the top side and you get a little extended move. But when you break to the downside of the P, right, you still have that larger, more aggressive move to the downside, as you've seen in today's price action. There's 2 more main volume profile sequences that we'd like to go through. The next 2 are going to be the D shape and the B shape. So B shapes are pretty common. You can see this is the B shape right here. And if we draw it out, it looks like a wonky B, right? This is in today's day session. And these are great because they show us that there's a thin volume patch right in the middle, because that means that there's a pivotal point in the middle. Above, you're going to be attracted to this large volume area, and below, you're going to be attracted to this large volume area, right? So when you draw out these Bs, you're looking for an escape from either end, right? You don't really want to get stuck in the middle, because there's very limited room to the next B-shaped volume profile belly. So let me just get rid of these and we'll analyze this. So if we look at one from a prior day, for example, let's find a prior day B somewhere. These are P's. I guess this is more of a B. So if you find a prior day B, something like this, you'll see that this is the top area right here. Oops. Come on. This is the top area right here. You can even cut it off a little, and then you've got the bottom area as well. Now, the bottom area you can draw like this, and the idea is you don't necessarily want to play too much in it, but you know that if we grab a box like this, and we make it a different color so we can see. Let's make it purple. So if we grab a box like this in the purple area, you know that if you're breaking above this middle box, because you can see how well the resistance and support acts at this area, right? This red box where this low volume is going to act as rejection as price comes into it, until finally when you break, you're going to get attracted to the big B portion. So using this for your following day's volume profile, if you are above the midpoint where this low volume is, what you're going to do is use it as a key support area to get attracted into the larger B, right? The same thing happens to the downside. So in this scenario, you get attracted to the upside because you're holding the thin volume purple box as a key support level. Now, the final portion is the D. So the D is just something that you see in the middle. It's a middle volume profile like this, right, where you have the high volume in the middle of the profile. And it's pretty simple. All you're looking for is a breakout or to the upside or to the downside based on this large volume node. So in this case, you get a break to the downside, targeting maybe some of these key support areas. So it's very, very important to use this in confluence when you're day trading futures, right? You can easily identify and map out the levels when you're trading these volume profiles. And with futures, you can trade them in the evening session as well when they reopen. This is on TradingView. You can have better platforms than this if you're day trading futures, for example, Sierra Charts or Quant Tower, which we use on a daily basis at TradePro Academy. But in essence, what you're doing with this for your futures trading is overnight session volume as it shapes up before 9:30. You're identifying if it's a PB, whatever kind of shape it is. And what you're doing is you're identifying the big volume nodes and the small volume node areas, and you're going to use them as either support, resistance, or attractant areas. You can see right here, you've got a pivotal point right at 4203 in this area, and if this volume profile stayed like this coming into the open of the session, you know that through this resistance point that I'm outlining with the cursor right here, you're going to get a break into the next big volume area, right, and the prior day's big volume area, and you're going to ideally use this thin volume area as support structure. So if we look at today's session and we shape this up, we can put this yellow box right here and say this is going to be a very key support resistance zone. Obviously, we can drill it down more than 5 points, and we'll know that above we're going to be attracted to this volume area and probably this thin spot somewhere here. And then below, we're going to be attracted to this volume area and the next thin spot of support down at 4175. So you can use these for breakouts. You can use these for pullbacks, right? Pullback is break the low volume area into the high volume area, pull back into that low volume area and continue the trend, or just break out of the low volume area into the high volume area. Trading with these is a little more complicated than just this, but I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. And if you want to learn more about these volume profiles, head on over to TradeProAcademy.com. If you want to learn more about what we do, our trade ideas, all that stuff, check us out, community.tradeproacademy.com, where you can enter a free chat room with us and keep in touch with us throughout the day for trade ideas in the morning, especially on futures that we give away tons and tons of points on a daily basis, and learn risk management with a group of like-minded individuals. So if you guys enjoyed this video, I know a lot of you guys are not subscribed yet, and I want you guys to smash that subscribe button to get us to 60,000, because you know there's a reward on the other side for you guys. I want you guys to ring that little bell to notify you when we do go live on a daily basis, twice a day, and smash that like button. So there was a lot in this volume profile video. I just want to reiterate what we talked about today. We talked about what is the volume profile. We also talked about how to instill it on TradingView in multiple different instances. We talked about finding levels, support and resistance based on the volume profile, and I went through the P diagram, B diagram, D diagram, and the capital B diagram. I forgot there was 2 B's here. So we went through all of those with you guys, those 4 types of volume profiles, and we talked about how we can use these for trade ideas. So thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you really enjoyed this video.